My name is Andrew Barrett. I was 32 years old when my parents sold my condo without my permission, 3 weeks before my younger brother Daniel's wedding. My phone lit up with my mother's name. I almost didn't answer. I was in the middle of reviewing quarterly projections, coffee going cold beside my keyboard. "Andrew," she said, laughing. Actually laughing. "We just wanted to thank you for the wedding gift." "What gift?" "Your condo." "Sweetheart, we got a fantastic price. Almost 180 in equity. Cash offer. Isn't that amazing?" For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. 8 years of overtime. 8 years of saying no to trips, to upgrades, to anything that wasn't necessary. That condo wasn't just square footage and drywall. It was proof I could build something solid without anyone's help. "You sold it." My voice didn't sound like mine. "We knew you'd understand." My father cut in, calm and firm. Family helps family. Daniel's wedding needed the boost. They had taken the documents I'd trusted them to keep safe in their lockbox, forged my signature, signed a purchase agreement, moved forward like I was a line item on a spreadsheet. They didn't ask. They just took. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 20 minutes later when my best friend, who also happens to be a real estate attorney, called me back after checking the title. "Andrew," she said carefully, "your mom was bragging at the grocery store about how Daniel's been paying their $2,100 mortgage for years. Said he's the reason they kept the house." My hands went cold because, for the past 4 years, that money had been leaving my account. 48 payments, every single one with my name on it. And Daniel knew. He'd seen the confirmation emails once. He didn't correct them. He took the credit. 3 weeks before his $100,000 wedding funded by the condo they stole from me, my family was celebrating. They thought I'd stay quiet. They were wrong. Before I take you back to how this started, before I show you how 4 years of silence built up to that phone call, let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone take credit for your work? Not by accident, not by misunderstanding, but deliberately. If you've ever been the dependable one in your family, drop a yes in the comments. And if you're invested in this story, consider subscribing. Because what happened at that wedding didn't just expose a lie. It exposed everything. To understand why that phone call didn't just shock me but broke something fundamental, you have to understand the pattern. In our house, Daniel was the future. I was the foundation. No one ever said it out loud. They didn't need to. It showed up in smaller ways, quieter ways, the kind you only recognize years later. When we were kids, we both wanted to play soccer. I was 13. Daniel was 9. My parents signed him up for a private training program 3 evenings a week. Personal coach, travel tournaments, new cleats every season. When I asked about joining the same league, my dad looked at me and said, "You're older. You can train yourself. There's a park down the street." So I did. I ran drills alone, practiced shots against a chain link fence. No coach, no tournaments, just repetition and dust and the sound of my own breathing. When Daniel turned 16, he got a brand new laptop for future finance prep. When I needed one for college, I bought a refurbished model off Craigslist with money from my part-time job. If I ever pushed back just once, my mother would sigh and say, "Andrew, you're the dependable one. Your brother needs more support. You're strong." Strong. That word followed me everywhere. Strong meant I didn't need help. Strong meant I didn't need praise. Strong meant I didn't get equal treatment. When I graduated from college, the first in our family with a business degree, my parents didn't make it to the ceremony. Daniel had a regional finance competition that weekend. "He needs us there." My mom said over the phone, "We'll celebrate yours later." We never did. I walked across that stage alone. A professor's wife took a photo for me because no one else was there to clap. Years later, when I bought my condo, no cosigner, no help, just 8 years of discipline, I called them, thinking maybe this time would be different. "That's great. Wason with for the one," my dad said. Then, without pause, "Does it have an extra room? Daniel might need a place while he transitions jobs." Not congratulations. Not we're proud of you. Just could it benefit him? Looking back, I see it clearly now. I wasn't invisible. I was useful. The dependable one. The stable one. The one who would figure it out. They didn't ignore me. They relied on me. And somewhere along the way, Daniel learned the same lesson they had. That I would absorb the pressure. That I would cover the gaps. That if something had to be sacrificed, it would be mine. They didn't train me to fight. They trained me to endure. And for 32 years, I did. 3 years before Daniel's wedding, my father made what he called a calculated move. One of his old friends pitched him into a real estate development outside Phoenix. Pre-construction buy-in, guaranteed returns, early investor advantage. My dad had always liked the idea of being the smart guy in the room. He liquidated more than he should have. Retirement savings, home equity, everything that wasn't nailed down. 6 months later, the development company vanished. Phone numbers disconnected. Website gone. Lawsuits pending. My parents were left with a mortgage they couldn't cover and a foreclosure notice taped to their front door. I didn't find out from them. I found out because a bank letter showed up at my condo wrong forwarding address on file. Final notice. Immediate action required. I drove to the bank that afternoon and set up automatic payments from my account. Million. 100 a month. I didn't tell them. Not because I wanted recognition. Not because I wanted leverage. Because I didn't want my father to sit across from neighbors, pretending everything was fine while knowing the bank was about to take his house. I didn't want my mother fielding church gossip about foreclosure. So I handled it. Like I always handled things. 48 payments. For 4 years. Over $100,000 transferred quietly from my account to theirs. And I never mentioned it once. Daniel found out by accident. About 8 months in. He borrowed my laptop to finish a financial model for work. I remember because he made a joke about my desktop being organized like a tax audit. He must have seen the email confirmation from the bank. The amount? The routing number. My name. He never asked me about it. He never thanked me. Instead, he told our parents he was the one covering the mortgage. I've been helping out. He apparently said, it's what a son does. My mother cried when she told the story at church. My father clapped him on the back. They called him selfless, responsible, the future of the family. And every month, the money kept leaving my account. I thought I was protecting their dignity. I didn't realize I was financing someone else's reputation. That was the first lie. The condo was the second. And this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. Daniel got engaged 6 months after his second promotion. Her name was Victoria Hale. Her father owned one of the largest real estate development firms in the state. High-rise condos, commercial plazas, gated communities with fountains in the center and security at the gate. The kind of empire built on contracts, leverage, and reputation. When Daniel brought Victoria home for the first time, I watched my parents transform. My mother pulled out the good china, the one reserved for holidays and hypothetical dignitaries. My father stood straighter, laughed louder, nodded along to things he didn't fully understand about cap rates and portfolio diversification. Victoria was polished, confident, raised in rooms where numbers meant power. And Daniel. He looked taller standing next to her. This wedding will change everything for this family. My father told me later that night. The voice low but electric with hope. This is how families move up. Not this is how Daniel is happy. This is how we move up. Planning started immediately. Country club ballroom. 200 guests. Live band. Imported flowers. Ice sculptures. The works. Price tag. $100,000. Money they did not have. One night, I overheard my parents in the kitchen. Daniel can't keep paying the mortgage and afford this wedding. My mother said quietly, he's already doing so much for us. I stood in the hallway, confusion turning slowly into something colder. Daniel made decent money for someone in entry-level finance, but not that kind of money. Not $2. 100 a month for 4 years. Not while saving for a wedding meant to impress a real estate empire. The numbers didn't add up. I just didn't know yet that I was the missing line item. The call from my parents ended with laughter. The call from Claire ended with silence. They did what she asked flatly. Sold my condo. I said, forged my signature. They think it's done. Claire Donovan had been my best friend since freshman year. She was also one of the sharpest real estate attorneys in the city. If there was a procedural crack in what my parents had done, she'd find it. Give me 45 minutes, she said. It took 38. The sale hasn't closed, she told me. They signed a purchase agreement, but the title company flagged the signature. It doesn't match your prior filings. Relief hit first, then anger. So it's not legal. It's fraud. Andrew. Her voice was steady. Forgery on a property transaction is a felony. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Criminal charges. Against my own parents. There's something else, Claire added. Your mom mentioned at the grocery store that Daniel's been paying their mortgage for years. She was bragging about it. The room went still. That's not possible, I said quietly. I've been paying it. Are you sure? I have every statement. 48 payments. My account number. My routing number. My name. There was a pause on the line. Then Daniel's been lying, she said. And your parents believe him. In that moment, the condo stopped being the only betrayal. They hadn't just taken my property. They had built an entire narrative around my silence. I felt something settle inside me. Not panic. Not even rage. Clarity. I need copies of everything, I said. Every document. Every flagged signature. And I need to know exactly what my brother told them. Claire didn't hesitate. Then we built a case. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't building it to protect them. Claire's conference table looked like the aftermath of an audit. Neatly stacked folders. Color-coded tabs. Highlighter marks precise and unforgiving. She didn't do chaos. She built cases. Start here, she said, sliding the first stack toward me. 48 bank statements. Each one highlighted at the same line item. Armayun, 100 mortgage payment. Andrew Barrett, account ending in 4,821. Month after month, no gaps, no missed payments. 4 consecutive years of quiet obligation. That's roughly $100,000. Claire said calmly, and every single transfer originated from your account. I nodded. The numbers weren't new to me. I'd watched them leave my balance in silence. What was new was seeing them organized, weaponized. She slid the second document forward. The original deed to my condo. My name, sole owner, clean title. Then the third. The purchase agreement my parents had signed with the buyer. My name again, only this time. Attached to a forged signature. It's close, Claire said, but not close enough. The title company flagged it immediately. Next came printed emails. One from my mother. 2 years ago. Don't worry about the condo documents. Honey, we're just keeping them safe. We would never do anything without asking. Another from my father. Trust us. It's just for safekeeping. Claire tapped the page lightly. Intent matters in fraud cases. These help. I exhaled slowly. Then she handed me her phone. I shouldn't technically still be in your family group chat, she said. Your mom added me years ago when I reviewed her will draft. They forgot to remove me. She opened a screenshot. 3 weeks earlier. Right after my parents had listed my condo. Daniel, don't worry about Andrew. He won't make a scene. He never does. I read it once. Then again, he won't make a scene. He never does. There it was. The entire foundation of their confidence. Not greed. Not desperation. Assumption. They assumed my silence was permanent. I looked up at Claire. That's premeditation, she said evenly. He reassured them you wouldn't object. I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger. Recognition. They hadn't panicked. They hadn't hidden it from me. They'd moved forward because they believed I would absorb it. Claire began assembling everything into a single manila folder. Bank statements. Forged contract. Email promises. Group chat screenshot. Andrew, she said quietly. Once you use this, there's no going back. I understood what she meant. If I exposed this publicly, especially at a wedding tied to a real estate empire, it wouldn't just embarrass them. It would detonate reputations. Daniel worked in finance. Credibility was currency. Victoria's father built buildings on trust and contracts. Forgery and financial misrepresentation weren't minor character flaws in those circles. They were disqualifying. I closed the folder. For 32 years, I had been predictable, reliable, contained. Daniel had built his confidence on that. My parents had built their plan on that. He won't make a scene. I ran my thumb across the edge of the folder and looked at Claire. What are my options? Claire didn't answer immediately. She pulled a legal pad closer and drew 3 clean lines down the page. You have 3 paths, she said. She wrote the first number. Option 1. We go to the police. Today, forgery on a real estate transaction is a felony. Your parents could face charges, potentially prison time. Daniel could be implicated if we prove coordinated intent. The word prison hung in the air longer than I expected. I pictured my father in a courtroom, my mother explaining herself under oath, Daniel's engagement imploding before it even reached the aisle. What's option 2? We wait until after the wedding. File civil action quietly. You recover damages. Force repayment. Minimal public exposure. I shook my head slightly. And by then Daniel is legally married into a real estate empire. Claire said evenly. They'll protect their name. They'll spin it. You'll be the bitter older brother who tried to sabotage the wedding out of jealousy. She didn't say it cruelly, just factually. I knew she was right. And option 3. She met my eyes. You confront them publicly before the marriage is finalized. At the wedding. With documentation, in front of the Hale family. The room went still. It should have felt extreme, petty, dramatic, everything I'd been conditioned not to be. But if I waited, the narrative would harden. Daniel would step into his new life shielded by wealth and legal teams. My parents would rewrite the story before I could speak. They're counting on me staying quiet. I said slowly, "Yes," Claire replied. "They are." I looked down at the folder in my hands. For once in my life, silence wasn't strength. It was surrender. "I'll do it before the vows are legally binding," I said. Claire nodded once. Then we prepare for impact. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my condo. My condo. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, cutting clean lines across the hardwood floor. The place was quiet. Always quiet. No television humming in the background. No voices debating who needed more support. Just air. Still and steady. Across town, Daniel was probably getting fitted into a tailored tux, surrounded by groomsmen and champagne and the certainty of a perfect day. My phone buzzed. "Claire, everything is ready. Copies secured. Buyer officially withdrawn. Call me if you need anything." I stared at the message for a long moment. Everything is ready. I showered slowly. No rushing. No pacing. Just deliberate movements. Shaving cream. Steam. The mechanical calm of routine. On the chair in my bedroom hung the suit Daniel had asked me to wear. Dark gray. Subtle. Polished. "We don't want you clashing with the groomsmen photos," he joked. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now I understood. I wasn't meant to stand out. On my kitchen counter sat the manila folder. Inside, 48 mortgage payments. Original deed. Forged purchase agreement. Email promises. Screenshot. He won't make a scene. I opened it one last time. Not to review the facts, but to feel the weight of them. 4 years of sacrifice. 8 years of discipline. 32 years of conditioning. Silence isn't strength. Dependable isn't disposable. I closed the folder and slid it into my briefcase. In the mirror, I adjusted my tie. My expression surprised me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. I was calm. That might have scared me the most. They expected a toast, a handshake, a supportive older brother nodding while the narrative crowned Daniel the responsible son. They expected predictability. What they didn't expect was documentation. I grabbed my keys and stepped out into the hallway. Locked the door behind me. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. By the time I reached the parking garage, the decision wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. The Hale Estate Country Club was 40 minutes away, and I had something to say. The Hale Estate Country Club looked like a real estate brochure come to life. White stone arches, manicured hedges trimmed to geometric perfection, valets in pressed uniforms, every surface polished, curated, intentional. Inside, the ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers. 200 guests, finance executives, developers, investors, the kind of people who shook hands on multi-million-dollar deals in minute. I stood near the back as Daniel worked the room. He looked confident, controlled, exactly the man Victoria's father would want his daughter marrying. Our parents floated between tables, smiling too wide, speaking too loudly. "Our sons are so responsible," my mother told a group near the bar. "Daniel's been supporting us for years. We're so proud." My father clapped Daniel on the shoulder like he'd built the family from scratch. I kept my briefcase at my side. The ceremony was immaculate. Vows exchanged. Applause. A kiss sealed under soft piano music. Legally binding. Then came the reception. Dinner ended. Glasses refilled. The band softened into a background hum. My father stood first. He tapped his champagne glass, smiling as the room quieted. "Family," he began warmly. "That's what today is about. Loyalty. Sacrifice. Showing up for each other." I felt the word sacrifice settle in my chest. "I want to thank my son Daniel," he continued. "For the past 4 years, he's carried this family financially. He's paid our mortgage without complaint. That kind of responsibility, that's the mark of a real man." Applause. Daniel bowed his head modestly. "And Andrew," my father added, turning toward me, "for the incredible gift of his condo equity, so his brother could have the wedding he deserves." 200 sets of eyes shifted in my direction. Expectant. I stood slowly. "Dad," I said evenly, "would you mind if I said a few words?" He hesitated only a fraction of a second. Of course he did. There were witnesses. "Of course," he said, handing me the microphone. The room stilled. I walked to the center of the floor, the weight of the briefcase steady in my hand. "Thank you," I began. Since we're talking about sacrifice, I think everyone deserves clarity. Silence. I did not gift my condo. Murmurs flickered across the tables. I did not authorize its sale. I did not sign any documents. In fact, I only learned about the attempted sale 3 weeks ago. My mother inhaled sharply. I opened the briefcase and pulled out the original deed. This, I said, holding it up, lists me as sole owner. Then the purchase agreement. This lists my name as seller with a signature that is not mine. A ripple moved through the crowd. Victoria's father, Mr. Hale, stood from his seat. Controlled? May I? He asked. I handed him the documents. The title company flagged the signature as inconsistent. I continued. The transaction has been voided. The buyer has withdrawn. My father stepped forward. Andrew, this isn't. It is exactly what it looks like, I said. Voice steady. Hale scanned the pages, jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. That money, my mother whispered. We were counting on. It doesn't exist, I said. Daniel's face had lost color. I wasn't finished. There's something else, I said, lifting another stack of papers. For the past 4 years, someone has been paying our parents $2.100 monthly mortgage. A few guests nodded toward Daniel. That someone was me. I held up the first bank statement. 48 payments. For my account, my routing number, my name. I walked the statements directly to Mr. He flipped through them methodically, page after page. Andrew Barrett. Andrew Barrett. Andrew Barrett. Daniel finally spoke. This is unnecessary. Is it? I asked quietly. Because you told them you were paying it. His silence answered for him. You saw the confirmation email on my laptop years ago. I continued. You knew it was me. And you let them believe it was you. Gasps spread across the ballroom. Victoria stared at Daniel like she was seeing him for the first time. I was going to explain. Daniel said. For 4 years, I replied. I reached into the briefcase one last time and pulled out the printed screenshot. He won't make a scene. He never does. I read it aloud. Daniel's message to our parents. The room didn't murmur this time. It froze up. Hale closed the folder slowly. He turned to my father. Is this accurate? My father couldn't answer. Daniel stepped toward Victoria. She stepped back. You lied about financial responsibility, Mr. Hale said evenly. In my industry, that's not a small error. That's character. Daniel's voice broke. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I said. I turned back to the room. I never told anyone about the mortgage because I didn't want my parents embarrassed. I didn't want leverage. I wanted stability. I looked at my father, but you tried to take my home. Then at Daniel, and you built your reputation on my silence. I set the microphone on the table gently. One more thing, I added. As of today, I am no longer paying the mortgage. My father's face collapsed. You can't, he whispered. You tried to sell mine. I replied calmly. The microphone clicked softly as I let it go. No yelling, no theatrics, just facts. Daniel reached for Victoria again. She didn't take his hand. Hale handed the documents to one of his attorneys without another word. The band had stopped playing. 200 witnesses, 200 recalibrated opinions. For 32 years, I had been predictable, reliable, quiet. Daniel had counted on that. So had my parents. I picked up my briefcase. This time, I didn't wait for permission to leave. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds after I stepped away from the microphone. Then the room fractured. Conversations burst open in low, urgent tones. Chairs scraped against marble. Phones appeared in hands. The polished image of the evening, the immaculate choreography, came undone in real time. I didn't stay to watch most of it. But word travels fast when 200 influential people witness a collapse. By the time I reached the parking lot, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Missed calls from my mother, from my father, from Daniel. Texts layered on top of each other. Andrew, come back. You didn't have to do this publicly. We can fix this. Please. I turned the phone to silent and placed it face down on the passenger seat. For once, I wasn't going to manage their panic. That night, Daniel didn't go home with Victoria. He went home with our parents. Victoria left the reception early with her father. By the next morning, the real estate empire had done what empires do when faced with risk. They contained it. Daniel was asked to step away from the honeymoon plans until matters were clarified. That was the polite version. The legal version arrived 48 hours later. Petition for annulment. Material misrepresentation. The phrase was clinical. Precise. Exactly the kind of language Victoria's family understood. Daniel's firm placed him on administrative leave, pending internal review. Finance, like real estate, runs on credibility. You don't get to present false financial narratives and keep a clean reputation. My parents didn't attend church that Sunday. They didn't answer neighbors' questions. They didn't correct anyone who had once praised Daniel for supporting them, because now the truth had witnesses. The buyer for my condo sent formal withdrawal documentation to all parties. No closing. No funds transferred. The deal was officially dead, which meant something else was very much alive. The mortgage. Without my payments, it resumed in full force. 2 weeks later, my father called the bank to negotiate terms. 3 weeks later, they received a 90-day notice. I heard most of this indirectly, from an old college friend who had attended the wedding, from a cousin who'd always noticed more than she said, from Claire, who monitored the legal ripples out of professional habit. There was no dramatic public shaming campaign, no viral video, just quiet recalibration. Daniel moved back into our parents' house. Victoria's name disappeared from his social media within days. The annulment was finalized within 6 weeks. No ceremony, no public statement, just paperwork. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. There's a difference between justice and revenge. Justice feels clean. Revenge feels loud. This felt quiet. One evening, about a month after the wedding, my cousin sent me a photo. Our parents' house. A for sale sign in the yard. Listed at $285,000. Price to move. It sold in 11 days. Barely enough to cover the remaining mortgage balance and accumulated penalties. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. The same complex Daniel now occupied. For the first time in his life, he was contributing. No more borrowed narratives. No more inherited praise. Just his actual salary and real bills. People in our community stopped using the word selfless when they talked about him. They started using the word lesson. As for me, I stayed in my condo. Still mine. Always mine. The quiet in the evenings felt different now. Not tense. Not anticipatory. Just steady. I hadn't destroyed my family. I had removed the illusion. And illusions, once exposed, don't grow back. 2 months after the wedding, my phone rang again. This time, I answered. 2 weeks after the wedding, my father called. I let it ring longer than I normally would. For 32 years, I had been the one who answered immediately. The fixer, the stabilizer, the one who absorbed impact. This time, I answered on the 4th ring. Andrew. His voice sounded thinner, smaller. We got a letter from the bank. I didn't respond. They're giving us 90 days. He continued. After that, they'll start proceedings. Foreclosure. The word hung between us without being said. Have you asked Daniel? I asked calmly. A long pause. He can't. My father said quietly. He never could. We both knew that. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling of my condo. The same ceiling I almost lost because they assumed I wouldn't fight. Why didn't you tell us? He asked suddenly. About the mortgage. All those years. There it was. The question that should have come 4 years earlier. I thought about it. About the first automatic payment. About every silent transfer. About watching Daniel accept praise that wasn't his. Would it have mattered? I asked evenly. Silence. If I had told you, would you have believed me? Or would you have assumed I was exaggerating, being dramatic? He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. I didn't do it for credit. I continued. I did it because I didn't want you to lose the house. But that doesn't mean you get to take mine. His voice cracked slightly. We never meant for it to go that far. It already did. Another pause. I'm not paying anymore. Dad, we're your parents. And I was your son. I replied. Not the dependable one. Not the quiet one. Just your son. I hope you figure it out. I said. But I'm not your safety net anymore. I ended the call before he could say anything else. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. Just clear. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. No return address. Just my name written in my mother's careful handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Andrew, I don't know where to begin. I'm sorry. Not just for the condo. Not just for the wedding. For years of not seeing you clearly. You were always so capable. So steady. We convinced ourselves that meant you didn't need as much. That you were fine. That Daniel needed more support. We were wrong. We should have asked. We should have verified. We should have noticed. You deserved parents who questioned things when the story didn't add up. You deserve to be celebrated the way we celebrated him. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I see it now. I read it twice. There were no excuses in it. No justification. Just acknowledgement. That mattered. But acknowledgement isn't repair. Words are light. Actions carry weight. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer not hidden, not displayed. A beginning, not a resolution. Some damage doesn't reverse. It recalibrates. And I was still deciding what that recalibration would look like. 6 months after the wedding, the condo felt different. Same walls, same bay window, same square footage, but the air felt lighter. I repainted the living room deep charcoal instead of the neutral beige I'd chosen years ago when I still worried about resale value. I replaced the couch with something I actually liked instead of something practical. I bought art without asking myself if it was responsible. For 8 years, this place had been proof. Now it was choice. Work shifted. 2. The promotion I'd been circling for nearly 2 years finally came through. Senior operations lead. An extra $800 a month money that used to disappear into my parents' mortgage stayed in my account. For the first time in years, my savings grew without interruption. I opened a separate account, labeled travel. Booked a trip to Portugal for the spring. Lisbon. Porto. No one to check in with. No one to subsidize. Claire came over most Thursdays now. We cooked ambitious meals. Opened wine that wasn't on sale. Talked about everything except my family. You look different, she said one evening, watching me from across the table. Less tense, like you're not bracing for something. She was right. For years, I had lived like a structural beam load-bearing. Quiet, necessary, but beams aren't supposed to carry everything alone. I stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed. Stopped anticipating crisis. Stopped assuming I would be called to fix something. Daniel texted once. I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. 6 months earlier, I would have replied immediately, smoothed it over, made space. This time, I set the phone down. Growth isn't dramatic. It's small decisions repeated. Not today. I thought, maybe someday, but not today. I walked to the window and looked out over the city. For years, I had equated loyalty with self-sacrifice. Now I understood something else. Boundaries aren't betrayal. They're self-respect. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't financing someone else's narrative. I was building my own. People keep asking me if I regret doing it publicly, if I wish I'd handled it more privately, if I think I went too far. Here's what I've learned. Being dependable isn't the same as being disposable. For most of my life, I confused the two. I thought strength meant absorbing impact. I thought maturity meant staying quiet. I thought loyalty meant giving without limit. But silence isn't strength if it erases you. I wasn't angry when I exposed them. I was finished. Finished funding a lie. Finished being the fallback plan. Finished letting other people build reputations on my restraint. Family isn't about shared DNA. It's about mutual respect. And respect doesn't survive deception. Do I forgive them? Maybe. Eventually. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the same dynamic. It doesn't mean reopening the door to the same behavior. It means I move forward without carrying bitterness. It doesn't mean I move backward into the same pattern. For 32 years, I was the easy one. Easy to rely on. Easy to overlook. Easy to assume. I'm done being easy. If you've ever been the quiet one in your family, the one who covered gaps while someone else took applause, I see you. Your silence is not your obligation. Your boundaries are not cruelty. And being strong does not require you to disappear. This story was created by the Boundaries and Bloodlines team for entertainment purposes only. Do not replicate these actions in real life under any circumstances.